So, picture this. You're in a place like South Florida. You've got hurricanes getting stronger, seas rising. You'd think we'd be throwing every single cutting-edge material we have at the problem, right? Building our cities to be as strong and safe as humanly possible? Well, that's what makes this next question so weird.
Seriously, let's get into this. The technology is there. We've got incredible new cements, tougher polymers, all kinds of smart materials that could make our infrastructure way more resilient. And yet, you look around at new construction, and a lot of the time, we're still using tech that's decades old. It's this huge, frustrating gap between what we can do and what we're actually doing. So, what's the holdup?
Well, a new report from the Risk and Resilience Tech Hub did a major deep dive into this very question. They focused on South Florida, but what they found, well, it pretty much applies everywhere. And their conclusion was that the problem isn't a lack of cool new ideas. The real bottleneck is the system of rules we use to approve those ideas. The very building codes that are supposed to keep us safe are, in a lot of ways, holding us back.
To really get what's going on, we have to pull back the curtain on the system itself. Because it's not just one big book of rules that everyone follows. Oh no. It's more like a complex, multi-layered waterfall of codes and specifications. Let's trace how a single rule actually makes its way from a national standard all the way down to a local building project.
It all kicks off at the top with these national model codes, like the International Building Code. You can think of those as the master templates. Then, each state takes that template and puts its own spin on it, which is how you get something like the Florida Building Code. But it doesn't stop there. After that, local cities and counties can tack on their own changes. And then finally, every single construction project has its own specific rulebook. It's a long, long way down from the top.
And you want to know who's making all these rules? Well, it's a whole bunch of different cooks in the kitchen. We're talking about a sprawling landscape of committees and agencies, from huge national bodies like the American Concrete Institute to state commissions, all the way down to your local city's public works department. Each one has its own rules, its own process, creating this tangled maze that any new idea has to try and navigate.
Now, here's a really important distinction you have to get. Most of these rules are what you'd call prescriptive. They're like a super rigid recipe that tells builders you must use exactly this material in exactly this way. That's the opposite of a performance-based rule, which just sets a goal. It says, hey, we don't care how you do it, but this concrete needs to withstand X amount of pressure. You see the difference? Performance rules open the door to innovation, while prescriptive rules tend to slam it shut.
So you've got this super layered system with dozens of different rule makers, and most of them are writing these rigid, prescriptive rules. What do you get when you put all that together? You get a massive innovation bottleneck, one that keeps our most important buildings stuck in the past.
This timeline, this really puts the problem into perspective. Just look at how incredibly long it takes for a new, better standard to actually become the rule. An idea that starts development in 2014 might not actually make it into the Florida Building Code until 2023. That's a 9-year gap. In a world where our climate is changing faster and faster, a delay of 6, 10, or even more years is an absolute eternity.
But wait, it actually gets worse. When the report's authors dug into local rules, they found some that were just shockingly out of date. Get this, one of the key concrete specifications for Miami-Dade County hadn't been touched since June of 2005. That is a 20-year-old rulebook for building in one of the highest-risk hurricane zones on the planet.
And here is the real-world, head-spinning result of a rule that old. That specification literally prohibits the use of what are called blended cements. And according to the U.S. Geological Survey, blended cements are the most widely used type of cement in Florida today. So the official rules on the books are actually banning the modern, more durable materials that pretty much everyone is already using. It makes no sense.
And the investigation just kept turning up more of these roadblocks. They found rules that referenced standards from the 1990s, rules that required specific brands of products you can't even buy anymore, and even rules designed for freezing, icy climates being enforced in sunny South Florida. Every single one of these outdated rules is a potential weak spot, an unnecessary cost, or a huge missed opportunity to build something better and stronger.
Okay, so the system is clearly broken. But here's the good news. It's fixable. The report doesn't just point out all the problems. It actually lays out a really clear, actionable plan to create smarter rules which will lead to stronger, more resilient cities.
First off, we have got to speed this whole process up. One simple but really powerful fix is for local rules to just reference the latest version of a national standard, instead of locking in a specific year like 1996. Local agencies also need to get on a regular, yearly schedule for updating their specs, not once every 2 decades. And maybe actually dedicate some staff and funding to make sure it gets done.
Second, there needs to be a big shift in mindset.
We have to move away from those rigid, old-school recipes and really embrace performance. The goal should be to care about what a material does, how strong it is, how durable it is over its entire life, not just what's in it. This one change would empower engineers to innovate and find the absolute best, most efficient solution for any given job.
And third, we have to build an actual on-ramp for new ideas. Right now, if you have a new material, there's no clear front door to knock on. We need a public, transparent process for getting new materials evaluated. And that process has to be coordinated, so some startup doesn't have to go get approval from 50 different departments in the same region. Let's create safe, low-risk test projects to prove these new ideas work.
So why should you care about all this bureaucratic wrestling over rules and specifications? Because at the end of the day, the outcome of this fight has a direct impact on the safety of your home, the cost of your roads, and the future of your entire community. When you boil it all down, fixing this broken rulebook isn't just about cutting some red tape for developers. No, it's about building safer homes that can actually stand up to the next big hurricane. It's about using innovative new materials that can lower the cost of construction for everybody. And ultimately, it's about making sure our cities can adapt and thrive in a world that's rapidly changing, building a truly resilient future for all of us. Which really leaves us with one final urgent question. We know for a fact the climate isn't waiting around for us to get our act together. The storms are getting stronger, the stakes are getting higher every single year. The technology to build a better, safer world is already here. The only real question left is, can we fix our rules fast enough to actually use it?